Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Investor Intelligence, brought to you by the team at the Property Mentors. It's your weekly podcast for all things investment. My name is Phoebe Sikowski-Wallace, and back with me again is Luke Harris, our investment expert and founder here at TPM. Very nice to have you back, Luke.
Thanks, Phoebe. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Now, before we get into today's episode, I do just want to firstly acknowledge that there is still a lot going on in the world at the moment, and just want to say that our thoughts are with the people of Ukraine and anyone who may have friends and family over there. It's truly been devastating to see that situation unfold. And then, of course, closer to home, our thoughts are also with the communities of Queensland and New South Wales affected by the flooding, who have seen just so much destroyed. Luke, I know lots of parts of Australia are quite prone to these natural disasters, but I can't say it gets any easier to see it happen.
Yeah, look, it's a horrible time at the moment for a lot of people, and obviously our thoughts are with those that have got friends and relatives overseas in that part of Europe at the moment, and obviously Queensland and northern New South Wales are copping it quite hard as well. So our thoughts are with those people there, and hopefully a speedy improvement on the situation on both fronts.
Most definitely. So Luke, this is episode 17 for us, and over these episodes we've spoken in depth and broadly to so many topics so far, but there's of course all these little common questions that we haven't quite covered yet, and sometimes you don't know that you need to cover them until you ask them many times. And because of that, we're going to start making a frequently asked questions episodes, because, day in, day out, you especially are talking to many different people, and you're finding that a lot of these people are asking the same questions and they're sort of searching for the same answers. I don't want to speak too much on behalf of you, but would you say that's true?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of questions that get asked year in, year out that are sort of general questions in nature. But obviously, as things change in the world, and things like global conflicts and things like natural disasters and things like that happen, there's things that change seasonally. So there's things that change year on year, and obviously around those times when especially when there's things like flooding and climate change and other things that are topical. You get a new series of questions that come through that people are concerned about or want an explanation on. So I guess there's always unanswered questions, and I think from our perspective, we're here just to shed some light on it from our perspective as to what we really see as the challenges and how to address them as far as your investing is concerned.
For sure. So for today, I wanted to hear some of those frequently asked questions that are always being brought forward to you. And in preparation, I've asked you to compile sort of 4 to 5 that we're going to cover today. Now, these questions, just going down the list, are all quite different topics. And like anything, there's never one answer for them. They're going to differ for different people asking them. So we're just going to kind of touch on them today and sort of speak broadly to them. But happy to get into the first one?
Absolutely. Let's get started.
So the first one, now, straight off the bat, I feel like this one, there's quite a few ways to answer this, but it's where should I invest?
Fantastic question. And look, that's the one that surprisingly my friends and family ask me, and they should know the answer to this by now. But look, it's a good question for people that are getting started out in investing. I'm often surprised at people that have a few properties already that ask that question. But essentially, where to invest really comes down to your financial situation. It comes down to your age, comes down to your risk profile and your tolerance for risk, your borrowing capacity. All of those things come into the mix. And essentially the way to summarize where's the best place to invest is the area that sits into your plan, an area that fits into your long-term plan, fits in with your long-term goals, and really sits comfortably with you and your financial situation. So what area that might be good for you to invest, Phoebe, might not be good for me to invest because it doesn't fit my plan. It might fit your plan. Obviously, people at different ages shouldn't be looking necessarily at the same property type or the property area.
Yeah, and why do you sort of discourage people to necessarily invest in a place that sits within their suburb?
Well, look, I'm probably somebody that has bought properties in their own suburb because
Sure.
I know the reasons for buying in that suburb in the first place were for investment, and I just ended up living there. Look, when you're looking in your own suburb, often you're blinded by your local knowledge and the experiences that you have in your own suburb, and you don't actually see the rest of the suburb. There's thousands of suburbs around the country. You'd be very, very lucky, and I'd be surprised if your suburb just happened to be the best performing investment suburb for the year, or for the long term for that matter. So my suggestion for people that are looking to buy a property and invest this is, if you're looking to live there, of course, different situation, but if you're looking to invest, of course, we want to make sure that you're getting the best opportunity that you can for your situation at the time. And that just means that you need to open your eyes to other opportunities, other suburbs, and of course other states as well, because often people don't research suburbs outside of their own state because really don't know how to do that. And obviously when you're in the property market like we are all day, every day, we're buying properties with our members every single week. We're buying, a few properties every week for our members. So we're buying properties all the time. We're negotiating all the time. We're in the market. We're doing research that allows us to explore properties and suburbs all around the country. And of course, with our team of experts, we're able to dig deep into the best performing areas. And from that perspective, we've got opportunities in different states and territories and different parts of the country that really aren't advertised anywhere. They're off-market opportunities. And if you're looking in your own suburb, most of the time, you're probably going to be looking at something that's on realestate.com or on Domain, and you're doing what everybody else does. You're buying property the traditional way, which is just looking at the internet, going out and doing an inspection and making a decision based on that. But most of the time when people are doing that, they're not making an informed decision, comparing it against other properties. We've got properties in Western Australia, properties in Queensland, Victoria, all over the place, and we can compare them side by side. And when we're comparing the properties, we're comparing the numbers and we're comparing the end result rather than comparing whether we like the kitchen or bathroom. So from that perspective, we're able to get a better understanding of how an investment works for our members rather than just looking in your own suburb. So it really is beneficial to be able to compare like for like.
Do you think that kind of stems a little bit from people perhaps being a bit attached and therefore they would think that they need to be somewhat familiar with the property and therefore it's probably going to be one that's in their suburb?
Well, look, I think the way to really answer that is that it's an emotional decision.
Yeah.
It's an emotional decision to invest in something that's in your own suburb. It's an emotional decision that you understand the area, you understand what's going on, and you feel comfortable because you already live there, you already know the suburb, so you feel that by buying in that suburb, that comfort level is going to appease your emotions.
Sure.
And obviously, when you're comfortable, it means you haven't stepped out of your comfort zone. So yes, it might be comfortable to do that. It may not necessarily be the best investment decision, however.
No, I think that's a great way to look at it. Just buy where fits your plan, basically. So the second one is, what should I choose? High yield, capital growth, or tax benefits? I think maybe start off with maybe talking to each of these and what they are.
So there's a number of things. There's things that are covered in Property Fit. And Property Fit really sort of drills into a little bit more detail. So, whether you should be buying higher growth or capital growth properties or higher yield properties, again, comes back down to that long-term plan. A lot of people ask this question because, they've heard somewhere these buzzwords of, only buy a positive cash flow, or you've got to buy high growth suburbs, or don't buy this property because you should only buy an asset if it puts money in your property. Puts money in your pocket every week. And a lot of people have these preconceived ideas of what the ideal property investment is. As you probably know, there's a lot of gurus out there. There's a lot of people. Anyone that can buy a microphone and a video camera can be an expert these days. So I think from that perspective, a lot of people have these preconceived ideas that you need a specific type of property. The people that are talking about that are saying you should only buy positive cash flow, you should only buy high growth, or any of the other, I guess, buzzwords in the property industry, is that they're not talking specifically about your plans and your goals. Talking about something that is a general general summation of a property type doesn't necessarily give you the best one-on-one advice. And of course, any advice about a property that you should be buying really needs to fit in with that long-term plan. You need to understand what's that point B position that you're working towards, and then work backwards from that end goal. If you're going out there on day one saying, I must have high growth or I must have positive cash flow, and you march off into the sunset looking for that, unless you know why that property is going to be fitting into your property portfolio, then you could be going out there on a mission that you'll never achieve, because you actually don't understand why you're actually buying that property in the first place.
Okay, so it comes back to strategy and your goals as usual.
It always comes back to plan and strategy. And this is the thing, when often we get asked these questions, it really is an education piece first, and we need to focus on understanding that plan and understanding the strategy. And that also means your finance strategy, like we said earlier, understanding your tax position, your risk profile, and also your current knowledge on property. And we always ask people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate yourself as an investor? 10 being you're an expert, you know everything, or nearly everything. 0 meaning you're getting started and you're not really sure. And most people come in, they've done a bit of research, they understand the property markets, they'll find themselves, depending on how honest they are with themselves, they find themselves either a 2 to a 5. If they've been investing for a little while, they might consider themselves a 6 or a 7. And if they've got a few properties in their portfolio, they might consider themselves an 8 or a 9. Very rarely do we meet somebody that's a 10. And that can happen because there's always things that you don't know that you don't know.
If you wanted to get fit or start a fitness program, you wouldn't run a marathon if you hadn't yet mastered jogging. You also wouldn't begin weight training by lifting 30-kilo dumbbells. There are, of course, multiple ways to keep fit through a variety of sports and exercise programs. However, there is a process to getting into shape and achieving peak performance. It's the same when it comes to investing in property. You need to start by doing some self-assessment of where you are now to where you'd like to be. This would be your fitness test. You have to find your team of experts who will help you along the way. These would be your trainers. And learn how other people invest, including the mistakes they've made. Only then can you start to look at how you will achieve your property investing goals. Property Fit assists you with all of this. It's the latest book from experienced property investor, entrepreneur, and founder and CEO of the Property Mentors, Luke Harris. It's the book that will guide you through the groundwork you need to cover before you start investing, exploring all the ways to invest in property by helping you find a strategy that will lead to the ultimate goal of financial freedom. Property Fit is your easy-to-read, practical book including mentor tips and mindset insights, as well as proven strategies that seasoned investors or those just starting out in property will find invaluable. Visit propertyfitbook.com.au to purchase your copy and get your property portfolio in shape for financial freedom.
So the third one is, again, this is going to differ for different people, but I'd still like to hear how you answer this. How many investment properties should I have to retire with?
That's a really, really good question. And I guess the short answer is it's going to be different for everybody. If I had an answer to that, I'd be lying, right? If I said you need 10 properties, great. Well, what does that mean? And the old example that I always use is you might only need 2 properties. You might need 2 properties in Tasmania that were $200,000 each, and that might be enough, and just have them paid off, and that's enough. It depends on what your goals are. If you've got goals to replace your current income, and you're on $75,000 a year, and you're happy to have that income and retire earlier, just to replace your current income, then the number of properties is going to be significantly less. If you've got a big family with big goals and you've got private school ambitions for all of your kids as they grow up, you want 2 cars, a holiday house, first class travel, and these are a lot of people's goals, is to have that, I guess inverted commas, luxury lifestyle. You may need a substantial number of properties to be able to produce the income needed to support that. But at the same time, the number of properties is actually not so relevant. If you go and buy a property in Sydney Harbour for $3.5 million, you might only need 2 of those, right? And you get 2 of those properties for $3.5 million each paid off. Mind you, that's a cheap property if it's on Sydney Harbour with views
Yeah.
these days. But you might only need 2. Whereas if we're talking about the number of properties, 2 properties on Sydney Harbour versus 2 properties, in a regional part of Tasmania, 2 properties may not impress you, but if I told you I had 2 properties in Sydney Harbour and they're worth $3 to $5 million each, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about the number of properties that you have in your portfolio. It's about the dollar value of the portfolio, the income that it produces, and of course, how that's going to benefit your overall income and risk profile. So, I used to think when I was quite a bit younger and starting out in my property days, I wanted to get to, once you've got your first 2 properties, you really want to get to 3 or 4, because then it feels like you've got a portfolio of properties rather than 2 properties. So for me, I had a big focus as I was younger about having a higher number of properties. I was young and a little bit cocky, and I wanted to have lots of properties because I figured lots of properties, boosts my ego a little bit, and I can say, look, I've got 5 properties or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I was trying to, I guess to a certain extent, show off that I've got, 4 or 5 properties. But really the dollar value of the property portfolio is more important. And so what I was doing as an uneducated investor was trying to explain to people the number of properties, because the number of properties typically impresses people. Whereas if you explain the dollar value of the portfolio, that's a different story. So again, how many properties you need to actually retire is really going to depend on the size of your goals and, of course, your financial position. If you come to me at age 59 and you want to go and build a property portfolio, of 10 or 15 properties, it's a very different conversation to somebody that's 22, that's just started their career, is earning good income, and has time to build that portfolio. So, there's things that we'd like to achieve, and there's things that are mathematically possible. If it's not mathematically possible, then we need to adjust the goals accordingly.
I always appreciate your honesty of how you started out. It's always quite refreshing to hear how you started out and where you are now.
There's many stories. One day I'll get mum and dad on the podcast, and they can share some stories. I'm sure they'll have a few interesting things to say as well.
And I know that even if we can't give, say, a number of properties that you would retire with, I think it's still good to ask these questions and make it quite obvious that it's so specific to so many things, so we really can't give one answer. It's probably
akin to saying to somebody, what's the ideal diet for me?
Right.
I don't know your body type. I don't know, if you emailed in, I don't know anything about you, and you said, what's the best diet that I should go on? Well, I don't know your current weight. I don't know how old you are. I don't know your fitness levels. I don't know if you've got any allergies or anything like that. So there's more information needed before you can properly answer that question. It's the same thing if you went to a personal trainer, and again, if you didn't meet them and you just said, hey, what's the best workout routine for me? Well, hey, mate, I don't know your weight, I don't know your age, your health situation. I'm going to tell you to start by doing a 10K run. But if you haven't done that for 5 or 10 years and you're in your late 80s, maybe I might hurt you by giving you the wrong advice. So it's the same thing. We can't give you any guidance on that unless we know more information, and the information that we need is really your risk for appetite and your long-term goals.
Yeah, most definitely. So the next one's not even a question, it's just 2 words, and it's something that people are always wanting to know about. So I'm interested to know what the question or the questions surrounding this that you're being asked, and that's about interest rates.
Interest rates, yes. Are interest rates going to go up? Should I be worried? Are they staying the same? Are they going down? Look, I guess the best way to answer that is that nobody has a crystal ball. If we did, then of course we'd have very different conversations. But at the end of the day, interest rates are at historic lows.
Yeah.
That means that you can essentially secure money a lot cheaper than you could 5 or 10 years ago. And really, when you look at it, banks and mortgage lenders, the way I look at them is they're money shops. Right? That's all they sell. They sell money, and you can get cheap money at the moment. And what that means is that it really gives you the opportunity, and it might just be a window of opportunity, to go out there and secure some assets and really, build on your portfolio and get your portfolio in shape before interest rates start rising again. Now, what that means is that working in conjunction with a good mortgage broker that specializes in investor lending is that you can really lock in some interest rates now at very low rates to really help you for the next few years, to help get ahead. But also understanding that interest rates, they do go up and down. Now, they've been down and stayed down for quite some time. We do have some, obviously, global conflict and things that are happening in the world right now that are likely to affect interest rates to a certain extent, with oil prices and various other things that affect it, such as international trade, and there's a whole range of things. I won't get into that on this call, but essentially interest rates are going to go back up again. They've been low for some time. What goes down must come up, and vice versa. And we are going to get higher interest rates in the next few years, but be mindful of the fact that interest rates don't generally double overnight. It's a gradual increase and it's a gradual decrease. So whilst we have enjoyed relatively low interest rates, the lowest interest rates for a very, very long time, we are going to still enjoy low interest rates for some time to come. Even if they do start edging up slowly, they're going to go up by a half or 1/4% from time to time. I'd say for the next few years, we're in a relatively low interest rate environment. So, what interest rates are going to do, I would say they're going to stay low. They're not going to stay as low as they are, but they're certainly not going to double and triple overnight. We're not going to be getting into double-digit interest rates anytime soon, and the risks of that are extremely low. But I guess whenever you're investing in property, anything that you're doing with your mortgage lending, you need to work in very closely with your expert team, and that means working with your mortgage broker, your property mentor, your accountant, and of course, making sure that you've got sufficient buffers in place so that you can weather any storm. Because the reality of the world right now is there's going to be some storms. And I'm not talking about what we've seen in Queensland and New South Wales recently. There's going to be things that are going to happen. And this the reality of the situation. The last 20 years have had turbulence. The 20 years previous to that had turbulence as well. There were things happening in the world that are going to continue to happen, that are going to affect interest rates. So rather than focus on the big picture world situation and the macroeconomics of the world, yes, we need to be across those things, but not to focus on those things. What we need to focus on is our own personal financial situation, and focus on our own interest rates and our own properties and our own financial situation. We need to be mindful of other things that are happening in the world, but not make all of our decisions based on these macroeconomic things that are happening. So for me personally, I've been out there buying property, getting some great interest rates, refinancing rates that are too low. Refinancing rates that are too high, and renegotiating with some of my existing lenders. I jump on the phone just for fun once a year, and I ring the lenders and see if they can do a better rate. And you'd be surprised at how often they'll actually reduce your interest rate. You just say, hey, I'm up for a rate review. And sometimes they'll shave an extra 1/4% off. And that could be an extra $50, $100 a month in your pocket. So these little things that you can do, it's an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes by the time you sit on hold and speak to them, but that can reduce your rate. And imagine if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 properties, that could save you hundreds of dollars a month. So to answer the question, where are interest rates headed? Staying low for some time to come.
Well, that's good to hear. And in episode 15, we actually spoke to our mortgage broker. We had a fantastic talk with her. So if you want to go back and listen to that, she actually did touch on a little bit of interest rates and what she kind of sees happening in the market at the moment. So definitely go back and check that. Now, the fifth one I want to talk about is, again, not really a question. It's more a bit of a statement. And it does surround what you did just touch on there, Luke, which is uncertainty. It's everywhere at the moment. I'm guessing one of the questions that you're kind of being asked is, should I hold off? But talk to me about that.
Look, I guess there's, like I mentioned before, there is always uncertainty in the global marketplace, I guess. If we go back, for the last 20 years, if we look at 1999, we were talking about the Y2K bug that was meant to blow everything up and cause all sorts of havoc around the world, which didn't happen. There was the tech bubble that happened around that time. Then we had September 11. We've had the Iraq War and various other things. We had the GFC, and there's been a lot of other things. And of course, finishing off most recently, the biggest things, we've had COVID, and now we're talking about the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. We've had floods and bushfires here in Australia over the last few years. So these things on a global scale have always happened. There's always been financial things like GFCs. Obviously, GFC was a big one, but there's been similar things happen in the past. And those things are going to happen. It's just the reality of the world that we live in. Unfortunately, these things do happen. And I guess a lot of people might sit on the sidelines, and there are people probably listening to this right now that are sitting on the sidelines thinking, well, this stuff in Ukraine that's going on, I'm really not sure how that's going to pan out. I might just wait. Or there's something other, there's talk of interest rates going up. I might just wait. Or the property markets are going quite well right now across the country. I might wait until that cools off and prices drop. And often I do hear that people go, well, I'm going to buy a property when prices drop. And surprise, surprise, those people are still waiting.
Yeah.
10 or 15 years later, they're still waiting for the market to drop until the right time to get in. So I guess those things are always going to happen. So what we need to look at, again, not look at the global conditions and what's happening out there. Yes, we need to be mindful of it. But what's more important is your own personal goals and the things that you want to achieve. So look at your own situation, look in your own backyard, and look at what you want to achieve. And don't put your goals on hold while you wait for the world to sort itself out. Because the world is the world. And from what we've seen over the last 20 or 30 years, the world is not going to sort itself out as far as having peace and calm and happiness and everything's going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. As much as we dream of this utopia world that has no wars and no financial issues and no issues with interest rates going up or down and oil prices and all of the things that affect it, the reality is those things are going to happen. So the only thing that we can worry about is things that are in our own control. There's no point in worrying about something that you can't control. So if you can control it, then that way you can make decisions based on that. So of course, you can make decisions on your own financial position. You can make decisions to take out a loan and secure an investment property. Talk to your broker, an accountant, and your mentor, and put that plan in place so that you can really set yourself up. In the background, the world will sort itself out. Now, I don't have a crystal ball, like I said. I don't know how the world's going to sort itself out. Some things will escalate. Some things will peter off and get back to some sort of normal. There's no perfect time to invest. And I think those people waiting for the perfect time are the ones that are going to be missing out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to make. Uncertainty is always just going to be a part of life. And actually last week, to plug another episode of ours, we released a great episode that sort of talks a bit to uncertainty and mindsets around not letting life events get in the way of your goals. And Luke, we can most definitely do an upcoming episode on understanding risk and putting it into perspective and, letting people know that they don't have to take these sort of uneducated leaps.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I guess once you have a clear understanding of your plan and how it fits in to your own situation, then it helps you to really put some perspective on these global matters that are happening around the world. Look, if everything was certain and everything was clear and there was, no uncertainty, to a certain extent, everybody would be out there investing. Everybody would be out there, going out there and carrying on their business, buying properties and not worrying about things. But there are always going to be people sitting on the sidelines. Now, the people sitting on the sidelines don't make money, and they can sit on the sidelines all they like. And some people, that's their risk profile. But of course, you need to get that right balance between understanding how relevant some of these things are to your own investing. If I was super worried about macroeconomic conditions, I would be out there selling my property portfolio. I'm certainly not doing that. I'm adding to my portfolio. And I know that there's an opportunity out there. When Warren Buffett said, when be greedy when others are fearful, or be fearful when others are greedy, right? So obviously if people are fearful right now, it's one of those things to say, well, if people are worried and they're fearful, that's going to create opportunities because there's less people in the market looking for those opportunities. So I guess take that with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is you and your goals and you and your own financial situation. So where there's a will, there's a way. my suggestion is to find a way and get out there and make some money, because no one's going to do it for you.
Yeah, most definitely. So they are all the frequently asked questions that we have for today. If you have any questions that you want to know that we didn't cover today, you can now head to our brand new Investor Intelligence website to submit them, and we will make sure to include them in an upcoming frequently asked questions episode. You can find a link to that in our show notes. If you would like to know any more about us here at The Property Mentors, you can check out our website, thepropertymentors.com.au. Make sure to also follow us on Instagram. There's @Investor Intelligence Podcast and @The Property Mentors. As always, if you are ready to take your investing knowledge to the next level and want to get your hands on Luke's latest book, Property Fit, you can go to propertyfitbook.com.au. Please make sure to subscribe, share, and leave a rating. We really appreciate that, as it helps us reach more people and help them on their investing journey. And it also lets you know when the episodes drop. As always, thank you so much for listening. Luke, as always, thank you so much for your time today. It's always a pleasure to learn from you.
Thanks, Phoebe. We look forward to the next one.